And you might say, like, hey, maybe I think Dallas is better, but since the Thunder have home court, they're going to win. So, like, we could just start with who is the better team? Because, as you might guess, in a series that's 2-2, it feels even. I know the way we got here was wild, and it felt like you were about 10 minutes away from having an emphatic 3-1 lead, and yet here we are.
I understand that teams win championships, and sometimes we put too much emphasis, especially in basketball, and I would say, I guess, in football, too, on the quarterback, on that's the person who dictates the win or the loss, which isn't fair to the other guys helping the cause. Team, I think it's 50-50. I think it's really a coin flip. That's a very tough question for me to have a strong opinion on. But I do know that Shea is completely and tremendously outplaying Kyrie and Luka, who you were like, well, here's the three best players in this. Chet is probably fourth, but we don't want to include him yet in his first season in the NBA.
I would agree with
as
that.
Like on this tier, on this category. So I think it's tough because I lean towards, I know this wasn't your question. Well, Shea's obviously the best player in this series by far, but the better team, because PJ Washington is playing so well, the bigs are doing their job, and it's almost like if they weren't, this would be a sweep.
See, and let me pause you right there because you make an interesting point, because then somebody brings up, if we have a healthy Luka, we win in 5. But that's not the reality that you're dealing with. So I'm saying the teams, as they are presented right now, can you definitively say one is better than the other?
I don't have an answer.
No, I can't.
Okay.
I can't definitively say that there is one better than the other. I think this is an even match. But I also think the Mavs cannot score under 100 points against them. Like that's a reality right now, is both times they've scored under 100 points, they've lost. So the reality of this, Kevin,
in game one.
No, it was pretty bad. It was 117-95. Like that was rough. Now game 4, different story. That was a kind of a just barely situation. But Kevin, like I don't have a definitive answer on that. I think you could play this series 100 games and it might be 50-50. Like this is a pair of teams. I think at game 7 you'll just run out of clock. Like that's whoever loses will just run out of time.
Like the Cowboys-Packers game.
That's right.
But that's what makes it a good series, though. Too. Like that's another thing. Like as being a fan of the Mavericks, it's terrifying because you don't want to lose. You want to keep going. But that's part of the playoffs. That's just how it is. But it makes it a good series because these two teams are evenly matched. And you're watching. In some games, you're watching one star do one thing, and in other games, you're watching another star doing another thing, and you kind of have to appreciate that if you like basketball.
Kevin, I'm going to ask you this question based off of, we see the highlights right now, Minnesota and Denver. That's the other series going on. It was tied at 2.
Yep.
Denver won pretty easily last night. It was competitive at times, but Denver, the last 3 to 4 minutes really pulled away to make it a non-factor. Would you say Denver's the better team in that series?
Yes.
Would you have said that as easily as when it was tied at 2 before yesterday's game? Because kind of my question is, will tonight dictate which is the better team?
I think I still would have said Denver, but again,
pivotal game 5.
Yes, I know, and we'll get to that specific number, but you're right. It's because the way it got to 2-2. Now, the Mavericks and OKC is a little bit different, but Minnesota punched Denver in the face, and you're like, holy crap, are they going to go down in round 2? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, we move on to the later round. I realize round 2 for the playoffs, but in the boxing analogy, and then you see, okay, it kind of feels like Denver, Floyd Mayweather Jr. this a little bit, and they're like, no, I'll give up a couple of rounds. Let me see what you got. And now you're to the point where Shea yesterday was like, I don't know. You just kind of laugh about it because he's the MVP, and like, what are you supposed to do? So that's why I think Denver was the better team in that series. For this one, I hope this makes sense and people don't get angry. I still have the Mavs in 7. Right now, I think Oklahoma City is playing like the better team because of one specific thing. They have taken the biggest weakness they have. Maybe one of the biggest weaknesses any team in the playoffs has. Any team left in the playoffs has.
Being in Oklahoma.
That's fair. That is not what I was getting
tornadoes?
at.
Well, and it's just Oklahoma. Like, I get it.
It's rebounding. Oklahoma City, 4th worst rebounding team in the NBA. What do you think the rebound count is right now?
I don't know. I just know when I was watching Game 4 early on in the fourth, it was 40-25 Dallas.
And that is what has brought this to even. And so Oklahoma City, 44.8 rebounds per game. Dallas, 44.5. So it's a push. Oklahoma City is the second worst offensive rebounding team in the NBA. 12.5 to 10.5 is Dallas's advantage. So where this should be a big advantage for the Mavericks, it's even, and they have a slight edge. The only game that you dominated on the boards was Game 3 because you ruled all over the offensive glass, and obviously you won in Game 3. And so I give a slight edge to Oklahoma City right now in terms of who's looking like the better team, because they have taken the biggest deficiency they had and been like, it's not so bad. I am still picking the Mavericks in 7. I hope that's not considered a cop-out.
No.
Because I think the Mavericks are going to assert themselves on the boards.
Okay.
Even if we haven't seen it so far.
And I think that, sorry, my throat is
Mike, you all right over there, buddy?
bad today, is I do think that, and I didn't bring any water or anything, so looks like I just have to go home and get something.
Okay, we could get you water.
Okay.
You need to go home. Let me know.
I think Oklahoma City wins this game pretty easily tonight in the similar fashion that Denver won last night.
Okay.
I do think that Dallas is going to win their home game, and then I think it's going to go to a 7th game. And I don't think either team wins Game 7 easily. Now, we've seen obviously the Phoenix-Dallas situation where it can get out of hand, or the Dallas-LA Clippers situation a few years ago where it can get out of hand. Game 7s can get out of hand, but I do think it's this close. That's why I think your question is a great question. I don't have a real answer.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So I look at this and go, I do think that Oklahoma City is going to ride a little bit of the momentum. I get it's a brand new game. It starts off at 0-0, but their home crowd is going to be insane. And I think those young guys are going to feed off of it. I think that they're going to figure out a way to win this game by about 10 points. And then the Mavericks are going to figure out a way how to win game 6 and push it to a 7th game.
I still refuse to answer your question, Kevin. So that's going to be.
Are you taking the 5th?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Game 5. Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
But the more important part here is when it comes to those rebounds, I think it'll be a lot nicer if you just if our guys that are good finishers finish around the basket, feel comfortable going. They're not going to feel comfortable for the rest of the series going to the basket. But what's happening now, because PJ was hitting threes, it's like, oh, well, we'll just kick it out to PJ, and Luka's still not finishing around the basket. Those rebounds aren't going to happen for Oklahoma City if Luka puts it in.
Okay, I agree with you on that.
That's something that has to upgrade.
I actually think my bigger concern is on the other end when it comes to the boards. Is I don't want to isolate like 2 or 3 possessions where it felt like the Thunder got 4 straight offensive rebounds.
But that's the playoffs.
Yeah,
2 or 3 possessions change games.
Exactly. And so my concern is, I agree with you. We need our finishers to finish, and that could change the whole complexion of this series. But I'm concerned about Oklahoma City not getting worked on the offensive boards. Again, the only time you saw it, Game 3. I know it wasn't a blowout, but the Mavericks controlled a whole lot of that game, and they won. They dominated the offensive boards. For me, they need to control the offensive boards.
I'm with you. I agree with you. I hope that happens. I'm going to now ask another question about tonight based off of the 4 games that have happened so far. Luka didn't seem intimidated in the Clippers series getting to the rim and finishing. I'm not saying he finished all his shots, but he didn't seem intimidated. I'm now going to put a statement on here, and then you guys can talk about it. Luka seems intimidated by Lou Dort. He seems intimidated by Cason Wallace. He seems intimidated by Chet Holmgren. He seems intimidated to finish around the basket. Maybe he's intimidated with the contact. He's intimidated with the block shot threat. I don't know, but he seems, for the first time I've ever seen Luka in his life, intimidated around the basket.
May I propose an alternate? It is not Dort or anything else with Oklahoma City. He is intimidated by the continued degradation of his knee. That's what I think it is. And no shit, I don't mean any shade to any of those people. Lou Dort's obviously one of the best defenders in the NBA, but I think it's the knee and how it's degrading, and I think that's what intimidates him.
But now my next question to you is, you think that's going to get better?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, not necessarily. That's why I brought up the boards. My key
if they had won game 4 and 5, then it would be better because he would have more rest. Is that
I'm not going to lie,
Now
Corey.
here we are, Kevin.
I definitely thought about that when I was like, okay, let's see. If Denver and Minnesota can go to 7 and you can close out OKC, this is before they lost last game, in 5, you're going to get about 6 days of rest, 5 days of rest.
Yeah.
Dude, I definitely thought about all of that.
But
Now
here we
you're
are
just
now.
like, we just need to win. And so, no, I don't think that's going to improve, Mike, because if I did, I definitely would think Dallas was going to win this
So you
series.
think he doesn't think he can do his stuff because of
Correct.
Now somebody did text in and they were like, "Can you guys stop saying he's injured? All I've heard is banged up, and I think he's just full of it or gassed." And I mean, like, just watch the dude's history. The way he's playing right now is not up to par for Luka Doncic. So I don't think it has anything to do with what's that.
Did I say a bad word?
No, you
It
said
was
no
close.
shade.
Yeah, you said
Oh,
no shade,
no
but you had a little
shade.
stutter.
Oh,
You gave
okay.
us a hesitation there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
And yeah, it really threw us off.
Yeah.
I saw a whole lot of people are texting that in. I was like, oh my God, did I really?
But and I honestly don't know exactly what is wrong with his knee. I don't know if there's something that's just a sprain. Like we heard sprain early in the Clippers series.
Yeah, or like a tendonitis,
But
which doesn't go away until you like sit out a month.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
the reality is it does exist. Now, problem is he's out there and he is the system. We discussed that last
Yeah.
week. He is the entire thing. So what else can he do to facilitate getting those finishes at the basket? That's what Jason Kidd has to figure out. If he's not going to be able to do it, or if he's intimidated by the size of these guys because he doesn't feel powerful enough to lean into them and do his thing, and at the same time also battle all game long. I mean, it's from the get. Then what is Jason Kidd's other option?
Do you consider, and I know this will sound like sacrilege, it's just a little bit, do you consider giving him 5 to 6 minutes less? Like, I know he's not going to volunteer for that.
No. They still double team him and they respect him.
Which is important.
And I feel like
But that's
for the most
but that's
part,
where Mike. That's where there's the Oklahoma's saying we'll let the other guys beat us, and in the last game it showed that they couldn't. You know what I mean, like other than Kyrie stepping up and being a different.
yeah, we
player.
asked Danny Green this. He kind of said, "No, I'm still going to double Kai. I'm still going to double Luka," because we were kind of like, well, this was before the game. You know, man, PJ Washington, like how fast do you close out on him? And he's like, and Oklahoma City stuck with the same game plan. They're like, we are going to allow PJ Washington to shoot his three. We're going to allow Josh Green, Derek Jones Jr. We're going to try to take away the lob, and we're going to try to double the two best players up top and make life very difficult on them. And so they stuck with that. So I do think if you take Luka out for those 5 minutes, those guys don't get those looks.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. The other thing, because I think we're all on the same page about this, but I just want to make sure. I've seen multiple people say, if it weren't for the free throws, you would have won game 4.
True.
I mean, that's easy math.
But my counter to that is, and I agree, but my counter is to that, this game was not as much of an anomaly for this series as you might think. Like, it was horrid, but they had still had multiple games like where they shot 60-ish%. It's not as different as you might think.
I am kind of curious though still make some free throws, Kevin. Like that's a reality.
Agree.
You make
100%.
You make your free throws, 100% of your free throws.
Oklahoma City almost did that in the
You
last
win that game easy, all right? You make 100% of your free throws, you win that game easy, all right? You did all the other things that it took, but the other part of
Isn't
it is
average in the NBA like 78% for a
Yeah,
team?
and-
So if you just shoot
Yeah.
the NBA average,
going to win.
But if you aim for 75%, Mike, then
I
you're
can
gonna
live with that.
You can fall short. Aim for 100%. All right, that's all I'm asking. Aim
Sure.
for 100% free throw makes, Kevin. But the
Okay.
factor there is you make those free throws, you're putting more pressure on Oklahoma City to
I
chase,
agree.
and that score isn't even that close. Now, I'm curious though. Do you think that they still continue to elevate, and they do keep it close whenever you're making your free throws at a higher clip? Or do you think it's still going to be the same kind of game if the Mavericks are shooting better at the free throw line?
I think you're going to see
Or is it a
games.
runaway?
I think you're going to see games 2 through 4 in terms of it'll be a single-digit decision. Although
tonight.
yeah, I think that's what you're going to continue to see. I realize in game 1, Oklahoma City ran them off the court, but
And
I say single-digit.
I will feel if the Mavericks win tonight after winning the game for almost the whole game and
Right.
losing, winning game 3, winning game 2, if they win tonight, I will feel very confident they will close it out in Dallas.
Okay.
But I just think that we're going to get the Oak City win tonight, the Dallas win on, is it Friday or Saturday? Saturday night, I believe.
Yes.
And then we'll get to game 7, and that will be, hey, here we go.